Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, welcome. This is the February 20th California Water Quality Monitoring Council Q1 meeting of 2025. Welcome, everyone. My name is Greg Gerhardt. I am the Deputy Director for Information Management and Analysis at the State Water Board, California. I'm also acting as the Director for the Council until we recruit a replacement for the vacancy that Nick left behind in his move over to the Division of Water Quality. And I'm also a co-chair. So I'm sitting in a lot of chairs and wearing a lot of hats today. And I'm joined, I think, by Caitlin Kalua of the Ocean Protection Council as the other co-chair representing CNRA. Hey,
yes,
Caitlin.
good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Good to see you. And I'm joined by other members of the council. So why don't we click off some of the members of the council for attendance? And I apologize. I'm not gonna remember everyone who's a council member at this point without looking it up. So why don't we start with the ones I know? I think Peter Froome, you're a council member.
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Peter Vroom. I represent the water supply sector, and I work as Deputy Director for the City of San Diego Public Utilities Department.
Nice to see you, Peter.
Thank you.
And Krista?
Good morning. I'm Krista Kamer. I'm the Executive Director of the CSU Council on Ocean Affairs, Science, and Technology, COAST.
Excellent. Good to see you, Krista. Mark, Katie.
Good morning, Mark Cady, California Department of Food and Agriculture, and I manage the Fertilizer Research and Education Program.
See you, Mark. Eric Dubinsky.
Sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm Eric Dubinsky with US EPA Region 9. I'm with the Water Quality Standards and Assessment section.
Excellent. And Andrew Altavote.
Hi, Andrew Altavote with the State Water Board's Division of Drinking Water, representing drinking water.
Andrew. Brian Lawrenson.
Hi, Brian Lawrenson. I'm the alternate for stormwater, and Grant Sharp is not going to be on the call today, so I'm filling in for him.
Good to see you, Brian.
Hi.
Karen Odkins, I believe you're a council member.
Hi, yes.
Your audio is breaking up a little bit. Well, Karen Odkins is from the Department of Fish and Wildlife. There you have it in the chat. Okay, I'm struggling now. So if there are any other council members, can you identify yourselves and just speak up, please?
Hi, I'm Steve Blumenschein, Executive Director of CSU Water, and I'm representing Science Academia. I'm the alternate to Krista Kamer.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, I'm Sam Choi. I'm from the Orange County Sanitation District. I'm the alternate member to Lorianne Pono. I don't know if she's here. We represent the wastewater sector.
Hi, Sam. Welcome. Thanks. Anyone else?
Hi, this is Christine Sotelo from Division of Drinking Water. I'm the alternate with Andrew Altavote.
Excellent. Thanks, Christine. Good to see you. Anyone else? Then I'm going to circle back and end with Caitlin and introduce yourself as the co-chair.
Good morning, Caitlin Kalua with the California Ocean Protection Council. Serve as alternate to Jen Eckerly and serving today as a co-chair on behalf of CNRA.
Awesome. So welcome, everyone. Let me just go over some housekeeping things here. Again, this agenda is on the website if you want to download it and look at it. I noticed that Nick is in the background monitoring to evaluate my performance today, so we'll talk about that later. But number one is that this meeting is recorded, so please stay on mute unless you have something to say. There will be roll call, which we just did. Non-council members, please use the Zoom participant list to, or actually the chat, I think is what that's implying, to introduce yourselves and to say where you're from and who you're representing. And we'll go over the agenda and ask if there's any adjustments, and then the action items are final. So I actually didn't ask for any comments on the action items. So those are, I think, posted from the last meeting in 2024, which was in September. We did skip the December meeting. So those action items are posted under that September bullet, hopefully. Any questions about the housekeeping? We'll see none. Oh, I have to call this meeting to order, I think, too. So it looks like we have a quorum, and Caitlin, if you agree, I think let's call this meeting to order.
Yes, please.
All right, we're going. Okay, so item number 2, this is an old slide. I apologize, I didn't clear the public forum request to speak. But if there are any members today that request to speak, now is the time in this public forum. This is for something that's not on the agenda or just anything. So if you'd like to do that, I'm going to pause about 20 seconds. Go ahead and show a sign of your hand or drop something in the chat suggesting that you want to speak. All right. Long enough pause to make it awkward. Thanks everyone for participating today. I know that we have lots of interesting guests. I see people in the participant list that I'm anxious to chat with offline or whenever, but it's good to see you all here. Thanks for being here. The first substantial item then is going to be member and director updates. I will start, and then we'll just go around, starting with my co-chair, Caitlin, and then we'll go around the rest of the member groups and ask if anyone has any updates. So on my end, which everyone is probably curious to hear about, we are in the middle of the recruitment phase for the new director for the council. That vacancy is listed as open. I believe it's open until today or tomorrow. If you want to help expose if you haven't already seen the vacancy ad and you want to expose it, we can drop it in the chat here. But basically, once that vacancy opening closes and the window is closed, we will have a moment for our HR folks to review all the applicants. And then I will get a list of those that are deemed available to interview. And then I will set up my interviews. I'm starting to block time now. I'm thinking that's going to be end of February, early March-ish. There is a substantial process involved with the hiring, so it's probably realistic to say maybe by the end of March, early April, we'll have an announcement to make about who would be the next director of the Water Quality Monitoring Council. Other than that, I don't really have any updates on the vacancy. Are there any questions on that vacancy and the process? Okay, hearing none. I think the other things that I'll just say is that there's a lot of change in the world right now. There's a lot of change in the water board world, state of California. We've gone through some significant exercises in reducing our resources based on last year's budget and the signed budget, as well as the budget letters that were put out by the Department of Finance. The result of all that is a lot of compression and thinking about how to be more effective and efficient with what we do have in our resources dedicated specifically to monitoring. The roll-in of 2025 brought some new challenges with the federal government and questions about grants and directions of programs and what have you. So just acknowledging that we are all going through a lot of change. You throw in a climate disaster like the horrific wildfires of Los Angeles in early January, and the desire by millions of people literally to want to know what are the effects on their water quality, their beaches that they love, and things like that. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of interest and activity, and we're doing our best to stay on top of it all at the State Water Board and in the Office of Information Management and Analysis. But basically, I guess my update is that stay tuned, hold on tight, because there's going to be some bumpy roads ahead, I think, with announcements and potential opportunities to do things differently with the way that we both run the State Water Board and the monitoring efforts, as well as the council in our effort of trying to direct the council. So just leave it at that at this point. Trying to think, are there any other announcements since you're on, Nick and or Anna? Do you have any other things that I should be saying as the director acting?
I think you're doing a great job. That's the biggest one, I think, that's impacting the council. And to share the council director vacancy announcement, like you mentioned, I put it in the chat, and I also included the budget letters that you were referencing for folks that aren't aware of what we've had to deal with over the last 6 to 8 months at the water boards and across all the agencies. So just for what we can share is what the public budget letters say. And I think the new director is an opportunity to, comes in an interesting time. We still have some projects moving forward for the council. AB 1066 is going to start moving forward in a couple months. So the next director will have a real lead role in that effort with the CDPH counterpart. There's also some legislation out there that's still, part of the legislative cycle, but AB 362 is about tribal water uses. It mentions the council and some requirements there that could come to fruition. I think the take-home message there is that, when I first came on board, the council was a little bit of in a dark hole, like as far as people's knowledge. And now I think we've really done a good job of getting it at the top of people's mind as an area where people can collaborate across sectors and in a non-regulatory space. And folks are recognizing this entity and the work groups. And I think that's a really positive sign. And with the reductions and efficiencies that are coming into play, this will be even more important and more valuable to folks.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Okay, Caitlin, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Building off your update, Greg, on the wildfire front, OPC has been working very closely, not only with the State Water Resource Control Board, but the Los Angeles Regional Water Board, as well as the Southern California Coastal Water Research Project, SQUIRP. Just want to first acknowledge an enormous, mispronounced Herculean effort, essentially across a number of entities, from the counties, cities, well over 50 different monitoring partners for immediate wildfire monitoring response in the aquatic environment. And so with that, of course, looking at the debris impacts, both large as well as sediment debris on the downstream beaches, but also within communities and further, fleshed out into the open ocean environment, what settlement is settling and impacts, to fish, to public access, et cetera. And so with that, I want to commend, there's been an enormous amount of coordination sampling happening through January, through February with the recent wet weather events. And for OPC, we were able to fund some gap filling for immediate monitoring needs, but importantly, more longer term coordinated wildfire monitoring. And so that longer term piece is really now kicking off. Now that the immediate monitoring certainly was taking place, I think we're in a little bit of a dry weather window currently, but of course, we are in the middle of winter, the middle of the wet season. So with that, we are awaiting data from the last monitoring cycle that took place last week during the wet weather event. Los Angeles County is maintaining a public database that we are hoping to help expand with the water quality monitoring data component to identify, sites, locations that were sampled, what parameters, what were the results, in the coming weeks, future. I don't have the exact timeline of when the water quality data would be readily available. But certainly moving forward, what is then our post wildfire monitoring look like going into this wet season, but also on a larger scale, statewide? What is our wildfire preparedness strategy? Essentially, when these are unexpected, we don't know when and where wildfires will take place, especially as we're seeing in coastal environments. But of course, they happen inland and then wash downstream. And so that is something that, again, just want to say thank you for everyone on the ground. And that's been our kind of top of mind for OPC and CNRA is wildfire, both monitoring and then response, and what to do with the results that we receive as the data comes in.
Yeah, that's great. I'll just say OEMA staff are here and ready. We've already engaged, and we want to, one role we can play besides helping assist on some of our contract resources to do analyses to the LA board and potentially others, I suppose. But the other role we can really play is helping organize and expose the data in a way that's more accessible to folks around the different user groups. We don't want to step on anyone's toes or get in the way of anything, but if there's any thoughts on how we can support that, we have people and staff and expertise in standing up open data access points for folks that could essentially be automated to, or almost automated to the point where it could be the same real-time access that others are providing. So again, let us know on your end, Caitlin, if there's anything that you think our team can do to help stand up this open water data any better. And you reminded me of one other thing that I have been doing is thinking and talking to folks about how to learn from this. We should have learned from the prior fires, in my opinion, but how to particularly learn from this one and any other the prior fires on how to anticipate what are the open data needs during the second and third levels of response after these disasters. It's sort of unconscionable, in my opinion, that we just sort of let the event happen in this fractured landscape of governance and therefore fractured landscape of data. And every time we have to rebuild a brand new thing that does the thing that shares the vital information to people who are going through a horrible experience and trying to figure out how to survive and maybe how to rebuild and all those things. So I have been having conversations with the folks myself, and I think the director of the council, when we do fill that position, is going to play a key role in helping stand up and organize a model framework that would essentially say, drinking water systems that have to come back online. There's a lot of testing. There's a lot of things that we can anticipate. Of course, the names and the places will change, but a lot of the same things are going to happen. Debris removal, runoff, water quality, all those things are going to be something that's going to be of interest from just a water and a water quality lens alone. I'm not trying to solve the big problem, but I do think that we can do better. So thanks for reminding me about those conversations that I'm having too. All righty. Any other members have updates? Go ahead and just unmute and speak or raise your hand if it gets too crazy.
Oh, I was gonna, sorry. Just as follow up on as a stormwater rep, like Caitlin said, there was extensive monitoring by the MS4 agencies, and it was for most of those agencies, including some of the ones where my staff work, it was the first event of the year, and the extraordinarily dry year down there. So yeah, it's kind of unprecedented on a few levels for some of those watersheds. A couple of Casca announcements too. Carmel Brown is now an assistant executive director for Casca. She comes from, you might know her from the DWR DFA group. So she started in the last couple of weeks. And the technical abstracts and abstracts are open starting next week for the Casca conference, which is in September 15th to 17th in Pasadena. And those abstracts are due by April 7th.
That's great. Thanks. Krista, your hand is up.
Thanks. We have a couple things also related to post-fire, and Caitlin, we should follow up on these afterwards. So an assembly member's office reached out to us for ideas for potential legislation, and we pitched them a couple different ideas. And one of the ones that stuck was about the need for a statewide monitoring plan to assess post-fire water quality impacts, which is something we've been working on as a subcommittee of this council. So they were really interested in that. We'll see what happens. And Caitlin, we should definitely talk about that. And then the other thing, and Caitlin, I don't know if you know about this, but Ocean Science Trust is putting together a panel on, so are you speaking on that?
I don't know the details, but I've heard that there is one being convened. I don't know that there is a date selected or.
Yeah, I talked to them because I'm going to be on it. So they're working on that. And so, Greg, I had actually suggested maybe they reach out to you. I don't know how big they want the panel to be. But Caitlin, maybe it seems like you should be on it.
Coordinate even one state representative. I would fully support OEMA, and we can coordinate as well internally.
And so Coast was not involved in sampling from the Palisades fire, and I don't even know if anyone from the CSU was, but we have a lot of information from post other fires that I think I'm going to talk about in terms of what we know about water quality impacts, especially from the Camp Fire and combustion of so many man-made materials, and looking at organic pollutants and heavy metals in particular. So that is also happening. And Greg, I'll let you know when there's an announcement about it, and you can send it out to the rest of the council, or I guess OPC could too, as the co-chairs. So that's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Hands are popping up. Peter.
Yeah, good morning again. I just wanted to give a brief update on the equity working group. So at the last meeting, we had announced that we had two new co-chairs. Unfortunately, one of those co-chairs has already dropped out, so we're down to one chair again. It's been difficult setting up meetings, so not a whole lot of progress has been made over the past few months. But one of the questions that I have, and I think other equity work group members have, is there any change that's been going on the national level? I know the National Water Quality Monitoring Council had a fairly large equity working group. Is that still continuing as planned, or are there changes? Is it anything that can even be talked about at this point in time?
I have not heard directly, but indirectly I've heard that the words and phrases that are allowed by federal employees is significantly constrained. It's going to be something that definitely shows up at the National Water Quality Monitoring Council event. I don't know if Nick or Anna, if you have any specific news on the equity work.
Nothing specific that can be shared.
Okay, well, we will just stay tuned and figure out if any changes to the California equity working group might be necessary as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, let me know how I can support. It's something that I'm personally very involved in and trying to lead. So yeah, let me know how I can support. And even if it's just brainstorming with you and our candidate, other co-chairs and other folks, happy to help, Peter. I think we're definitely still doing this work in California. I know that the Water Board is absolutely still doing this. We have a racial equity update March 3rd at our board meeting. Should have mentioned that. Forgot. So March 3rd, the Racial Equity Action Plan is going to be updated to our board and the public, and significant work has been done to provide updates to all the different projects. There's a new data viz that summarizes all the different action projects and the update status of them. I don't know if Rafa, if you can drop a link or someone can drop a link into the chat, that'd be great. But yeah, we're still doing this.
Great.
Anyone else have updates from the member perspective or alternate perspective? Could be anything. I'll take this pause moment to just apologize for the wonky communication on preparing for this meeting too. So together we will get through this and we'll get a new director that can do this job. So thank you for your patience. Karen.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me? Sorry about the
Yes.
sound earlier. Okay. Yeah, so from the California Cyanohab work group, CCHAB, we have 3 new subcommittees that we recently just started, which is very exciting. The first one is a fish and wildlife impacts work group. And so we're going to be identifying and filling some of the data gaps that have been longstanding on the impacts of HABs and fish and wildlife. In addition to that, we also started a drone and aerial monitoring work group. So we're going to be standardizing some of those methods for use of aerial HAB monitoring. And then finally, there was also a field instrument user group. So the aim here is to kind of troubleshoot instrumentation together and also report back to companies on ways that they can improve. So some exciting new developments from us.
Near and dear to my heart. So thanks for that. I guess related, I should share that the State Water Board held a sort of a confab symposium style or seminar style discussion around the state of science with harmful algal blooms. We invited all our divisions and offices that have intersect with that. So the drinking water program, the water rights program, Office of Research Planning was there, Division of Water Quality, of course, and OEMA. There might have been others. Delta Water Master was there, and we talked about, and we received updates from our science partner Squirt on sort of different topical areas. And we spent about 6 hours, I think, 4 to 6 hours, depending on how you count the lunchtime, discussing the state of the science. And we hope to produce some synthesis style report information out of that meeting that will help talk about kind of how we see, we actually see HABs as an organizing topic, a very high priority one at the State Water Board. Our current executive director, Eric Oppenheimer, has said this might be exaggerating, but he says he loses sleep at night thinking about the future of California and the ability of people to recreate both water and non-water contact because it's just it's so threatening and it's so important. So that's good news for us. We don't necessarily have any new resources. We have actually probably fewer depending on how you think about things, but we're very much interested in doing everything we can to work with CCHAB and others. So thanks for that update, Karen. All righty. Anyone else?
Caitlin has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I don't see hands for some reason. Caitlin.
This is a follow-up question for Karen. Is this in freshwater ecosystems or is this also coastal?
Mostly in freshwater, but we also are trying to include coastal as well and be more inclusive in that way.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Any other member or alternate member updates? I will just share in the chat, Anna suggested that we talk about the National Water Quality Monitoring Council meeting a little bit more. That's March 10 to 14th, I believe, in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We do have speaker time available coming from the state of California, and we also have a longstanding relationship, and I look forward to hearing the outcome of that. So for those of you either going or interested, have a great time, reach out and let us know what you hear and how we can better support that national council. All righty. Moving on. Okay. This is the one agenda item for today. Hold on. It's going to get wild and crazy here. We're going to go through the website. So the exciting news, and we really tried to do this in 2024, but it took a little bit longer to get everyone to look at stuff. But the exciting news is that the new format for the MyWaterQuality.ca.gov is out and live. It is a substantial update in lots of ways. There was a significant amount of work that was done by all the working group and team members, especially the web folks here at the State Water Board. They did an amazing job. It actually represents the first, I think, URL space at the water boards that is headed into this new direction of the standard template for state of California. It's optimized for both screen and mobile devices. And as a result of all the work that we did, we have really, I think, reorganized and condensed it in a way that flows well. And I'll just note that we actually immediately got feedback on that because one of my links in, I think it was the notice or the agenda, wasn't correct, and it brought the user to a 404 page, and that user said, but thanks to the good design of the 404 page, I was able to quickly find my way back to what I was looking for. So that's really, really, really positive feedback for me. But the idea of this item is to showcase it a little bit, talk about it, and to hopefully seek and further engagement and feedback on topics and issues and data and needs and opportunities associated with that website redesign. So any questions about this? And then if not, I'll ask maybe Anna if she could share her screen and we can just click through a couple of the example pages. Any comments on this? I know this is being recorded, but you won't be judged for saying anything.
Hey there,
I'm gonna
Greg.
Hey.
Hey, this is Marissa Van Dyke, NOEMA, and one of the managers of the Freshwater and Estuarine Harmful Algal Bloom Program. We help manage one of the work group portal pages here, and we really appreciated all the updates to the portal through, the new format, and we've gotten some really good feedback as well.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't get your slides in here just because I didn't have a chance to get all the working group slides in. But if you want to go through what you talked about in your slides real quickly, I would appreciate that for people to sort of see the thought process and what you did to improve.
And I can stop sharing, Marissa, if you want to share your slides on your end.
Well, let me pull them up. Why don't you start with what you're going to present, and then I'll add to it, if that works, Duna?
Sure. And Krista, I see your hand up if you want to kick us off while we're getting ourselves situated.
No, I popped on here the other day, probably to look at the members. I'm not sure what I was doing. And I noticed that it had a new look, and I think it looks really slick and updated and more modern. So I think it's great.
Yeah, so things are moved around a little bit. So that's going to take an adjustment, but the main structure, if you go to the homepage, it looks beautiful. You'll notice it's really easy to report a harmful algal bloom now. Before you kind of had to like dig through the CC Hub pages. It was hard for me, and I like know the website inside out. So I love that that's added in terms of ease of access to getting information to our people and then back into the public. There's at the bottom, there's usually like announcements or meetings. I can show you the safety work group page in a second, since that's the one I'm most familiar with, but just kind of getting our bearings. Meetings and about us are at the top for everyone. And then there's this link to the work groups. So I'm going to go to the stew because I'm biased. I'm the co-chair. For all of the workgroup pages, there'll be an easy way to get back to the council homepage, or you can just click the logo. There's a home, about us, meetings, resources, and then those sorts of things can change based on workgroup needs. For the Safe to Eat workgroup, we have a number of resources to the swamp data dashboard, the California Fish Advisory Map, relevant literature, other things. And because the work group supports the swamp bioaccumulation monitoring program, there's a link to that. You'll notice that for all of the work groups, meetings only go to 2022 before they would go to the beginning of time. And we don't want the website to be just a document archive. So Note that there will be contact information on who to reach out to if you're looking for meeting materials from past work group or council meetings. And you can just like click down and see what you want to see. Did I stall long enough, Marissa?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool. I'll
fine.
stop sharing. Take it away.
Yeah, I've been having a trouble with SharePoint today, but I have it open. So let me share my screen. All right, so I'm just sharing some slides here. I know there's screenshots of what Anna had just shown. So just wanted to highlight what's been done with the California HABs portal, where that ended up. So with the council's reformatting, you've got the MWQ home, so the council home, and then you've got home for each of the work groups. So the CC HAB network has a revamped and better organized page, and also highlights all of the member groups, which is really exciting, just to put them all up front and center. It's a little easier to find the agenda and the content as well, and right away go to the meeting information to keep up to date on when they meet. And then since the portal is so popular, it's a centralized website for HABs in California that all of the members network of the network contributes to, and also, just the one-stop shop to get information about HABs. So we appreciate that that's front and center on the council's pages, and also reporting of harmful algal blooms now has a button wherever you navigate to. So that's not buried, which is really great. And so just wanted to highlight, so for folks that may not remember, just a couple weeks ago, this is how the California HABs portal's landing page looked. It was an older format. We won't dig on that, it's just how it was. But the page was really long, and with mobile apps, tablets, some of the information was hard to find because you have to scroll for quite a while. So the resources were all on the right-hand side, and then lots of good content. A lot of our maps and cool videos were on this side. So now we've reformatted it with the help of web support to put all of the resources and drop downs across the top. And again, you can go back to the home page, which is before we didn't have a home button. And we still separate our resources for the public, and then more technical resources for organizations, particularly that do event response to HABs. We've got the HAB reports map and reporting button front and center, and then you can go to all the maps and full videos just through this kind of tool, which they call a hero banner from the state board. Sorry, the state's web design. And this is a snapshot of how the other set of guidance looks like. So it's a lot easier to navigate on things besides being on a computer. And I'll stop.
Looks great.
Right here, yeah. And we're also told just from the work that's done with the formatting that search engines will more easily find our content because it's going to be mapped a little different way that fits, like for example, Google searches for resources when you use their search engine.
Yeah, that's great.
The one thing I want to add just to flag for folks, these updates became live only a couple of weeks ago, which means many co-chairs who have been integral to making these updates haven't actually been able to see or proof or suggest edits. I know myself, I submitted my revisions like a year ago. It's been a long time. So I haven't had time yet to review and submit web requests for another round of updates. So things still might change slightly on these web pages, but it'll be more content instead of structure. So just if you find broken links, things like that, I recommend reaching out to the appropriate co-chair to let them know so they can get that taken care of when they have bandwidth and capacity. Yeah, Jan?
Hey Anna, this is Jan Walker from SCRP. I'm a co-chair of this estuary monitoring work group, and I was wondering what the workflow is to get some of, like I was proofing our website prior to this, so I just was wondering if you had like some directions on who we should be contacting to make those updates, who we should be contacting to upload, meeting resources and things like that, just so that we can make sure we're following the right chain of command.
Great question. Greg, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, I think I would recommend that you email the Water Quality Monitoring Council's email address and or me, and I can make sure that it gets to the web support team at the State Water Board. It'll probably be at some point just me short circuiting and getting out of the way so that you can work directly with the web support team on your changes. But that would at least initiate it would be to email that mywaterquality@waterboards.ca.gov. I see those now. And I think a couple other people on this call see those, and we can make sure that they immediately get routed to Brandon and the web support team.
I'll just add to that. If you're a work group that has a water board employee that's active, you can leverage them as well. For those of you like that may not, that are more SCRP led or led from external partners, that's where you would leverage that that email. So for some work groups it'll be easier, since like the Annas who have the direct access. For others might be a little bit more difficult, but even for for Jan, for your team, we can work with you through the method that Greg mentioned.
Thanks, Nick. I know our work group's annoying. We send you a lot of emails.
Not annoying. No, it's okay.
Consistent and clear communication is appreciated, Jan.
It
Not
is.
annoying.
It's not annoying. Agreed. And if there's questions about like, what changes if you want feedback or input from myself or the team here in OWEMA on what you want to do, that's another option, is just set up a meeting and talk about it first. But if it's like an edit this and change that, then just go straight to the web support team. They're very responsive and fast.
And I think they're prioritizing these updates over the next like month or so. So they're putting it like to the top of their list. So if you have the time now to focus on it, they're waiting and willing to have a team in place to add those updates.
Do any of the other working group chairs, co-chairs, or members want to go through and talk about their particular changes or the work that they did at this point?
I can share screen and you can tell me where to point and click, or you can share your own screen, whatever is easy for you.
Okay,
Hi, Greg.
so hi, Eric.
We could take a look at the Safe to Swim Network webpage.
Do you want me to pull it up for you? Or
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I didn't prepare anything. I think the webpage says it all.
Here we go.
Thanks.
So just to get here, I went down to work groups and Safe to Swim. Take it away, Eric.
Well, thank you. We put a lot of work into our webpage prior to this exercise, like 2 years ago or so. We all met collectively over several meetings to make sure that we had the right content for ourselves as a work group and also for the public. And those were in two different places. So now everything's been unified, as has been explained earlier. I think it's easy to find things. And for the public, and if you can click on the Safe to Swim maps, I think this is going to be the most usable click for people. And if you scroll down, instead of everything being kind of hodgepodge or just one big map and then all this other information kind of buried below, everything is very easy for folks to find. So the layout is good. If you use your cell phone, which most people will be using, especially when they're at the beach, it has all the information that they would want in a better packaging. So really like this. We still have some things to fix on it. I submitted a correction page so they can tweak a few things. So hopefully everybody will enjoy this webpage. The coastal Beach Water Quality Work Group had a meeting recently. I wasn't able to participate due to illness, but I'm hoping that they made the announcement that the webpage is available for folks. We'll have another meeting, thinking about 4 or 5 months, and we'll be able to. Oh, they did make some corrections. That's great. So hopefully we get some good feedback, so that we can ensure that we are meeting the goals for the work group as well as the public. And if you want to bring up my other project, the California Water Monitoring Collaboration Network, it's down at the bottom. Previously, this was a very, very, very busy webpage. We've been hosting webinars for over a decade. So you scroll down. I'm currently working on putting together a webinar package for this year. So now you can find things a little bit easier. With all the resources that we've had, it's just better to drive traffic to the YouTube channel. So we have that click there. So it just opens up the channel. We have things inside of playlists. All that's still there. It's all been curated over the years. So we don't have to do that on the web page and on YouTube. So it'll be easy for folks to just jump to our YouTube channel. And then in the past, we used to have all of the slides. Rather than just making those go away, I put those into a Google folder so people can still have access to that. So doing our best to serve everyone in the water quality monitoring world. A little challenging over the last year trying to make all this happen, but thank you, Nick, and our IT team for making this possible. I think it's a more enjoyable product. I don't want people to think that we're new and we don't have all of those resources that we've leveraged over the last few years and in the last decade. So they are there. I hope that they aren't overlooked. Thanks, team.
That's great. Thanks, Eric. I know that there's a lot of work to be done still to organize and aggregate data into these web pages. And so, I'll just say from the perspective that I sit in from my deputy director for OEMA job, we definitely want to center getting data to this new web resource and rethinking things. I'll just give an example of one that's already come to mind. At the HAB Science seminar discussion that we had within the State Water Board, we talked about creating a report card for harmful algal blooms. I know that there's probably a desire to also see if we can integrate and synthesize the safe to swim report cards that are outside of the water board world and bring maybe even potentially a new data resource or set of tools that would be able to tell somebody both safe to swim from a fecal indicator perspective as well as from a harmful algal bloom perspective. So that's one dream I have. And Evelyn, you have your hand up.
Well, I was hoping to maybe just talk briefly about the Safe to Drink website.
Awesome. Please do.
Do you want me to be your hand?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. So I just want to say, first off, it's a bit of an improvement, but it's certainly not even remotely where we hope it can be. I think, as you said earlier, Greg, I'm sure you're getting millions of inquiries about, is our water safe to drink? I mean, it's a pretty basic question that should be able to be answered from, this particular website, particularly from the water boards. And I just, first of all, want to thank Nick, who is amazing. And he's been just such a pleasure to work with. And there's almost no way to fill your shoes, Nick, of course. But it will be filled to some degree. And Christine, thank you for your enthusiasm to work on this with us. And we had a work group meeting that was really super positive. We got people from LA County Public Health, we got Met Water leaders, a few of them. It was a really great turnout with a lot of enthusiasm and recognition that a website like this has a tremendous opportunity and potential. And I hope, you know, you all like see that. And so right now we're asking for a letter of support so we can maybe reach out to other people who could potentially help support this work. But there's a lot of work that has to get done. So, you know, we just have to keep the vision going strong, right? Because if we can't talk about if our water's safe to drink here, I really don't know what other source is better. I mean, if you type in, is my water safe to drink in California, this is the website you get. So I appreciate what you were saying, Greg, about like all the, you know, potential to use data sets in a creative way, right? That, you know, kind of brings this whole new field to, you know, to a place that can be shared as it should be. I mean, I didn't realize that you can actually get a PhD in how you share data. What is that field called now? It's a whole new field, right? That didn't exist even a few years ago. So again, I hope we can really utilize the potential for this and really bring a really great like team together to finally do it right. So that's all I have to say for now.
Yeah, I tried to like show some pages as you were talking, but are there any pages in particular that you want to highlight for people that I can pull up?
You know, honestly, not right now. I feel like it's a bit of a step in the right direction, but it just has so much work to do. You know, good communication is not free. It's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. Obviously, I think all you know how complicated drinking water is. It's not going to just happen like overnight. So I think we've made a step in the right direction, but we just have a long way to go. So unless Nick, you want to say something about it?
You're
I
muted.
don't want to put you on the spot. Or Christine, but
You're still muted.
I'm still muted. No, yeah, thanks Evelyn for being the real champion behind keeping this work group active. I'd say go back into that website. I think that there was a lot of effort that we put into. I know a lot of it looks blank. That's because the work group hasn't met as a work group until just recently, and it was really just Evelyn and I and a couple other folks trying to brainstorm. So under resources, there's a lot of stuff that we put into effort in those pages. So any of those like bottled water, how to many of those are good ones that we've spent a lot of time in trying to provide resources and links to places where we think that I used to get a lot of questions from folks about like, you know, is my water safe? I just moved to this place. I'm renting in this new place. My water smells funny. Is it safe to drink? Where can I get my water tested? And we thanks to Christine Sotelo and her team has been a lot of help so I can provide answers to folks. And just providing information that helps folks find the information in a little bit more user-friendly manner. Evelyn's got some grand ideas for increasing the visibility and the user-friendliness of this information and using it more as an educational tool, which I think is a great goal and would fall in line with our accessibility and our inclusivity, you know, values. And so, as Evelyn said, this is a first step in the right direction. We've been working a long time on this effort as a whole, and I see a lot of promise for this website because it is, as far as like interactions with the public on a day-to-day basis. When I was the director, it was almost always from this space, from concerned citizens and other people within the state that were in a new location or came from another place and were concerned about the quality of their water coming from their tap or elsewhere. And so like premise plumbing is another big issue we want to inform on, and just providing as much clarity and information as we can to those folks. So thanks everyone for all you're doing.
And frankly, you know, public utilities are limited. You know, the bottled water industry sort of has taken such a hold, and we just have to kind of really, you know, prop up and help support, you know, the excellent work that's going on, like at the water boards, the regulators of public utilities. And there's really no other way to do this. We don't want, you know, other organizations who are so critical to really hold the narrative. It's just not fair. So that's ultimately the goal of this website, is to really be, you know, a beacon of you know, hope and really showing like the good work that goes on behind the scenes and how people really do need to trust their drinking water a little more. Of course, nothing is perfect ever in any world, but it's pretty darn close. And you know, the more we hold on to that idea, you know, the better we're going to be, particularly now, right? So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll just say, you know, I've been involved in this topic for a long time, water quality and monitoring. You can keep sharing if you want. One of the things that I think is interesting about drinking water, as opposed to a lot of the other regulatory programs, is the way that the system and framework is set up is that the public water systems are ultimately responsible for ensuring that their drinking water is safe to the people that they provide it to. And I've noticed in my experience with our brief new family structure to have the drinking water program as part of the water boards is that there's a lot of cultural resistance to the state telling folks how safe their water is. And they want to basically say, you need to talk to your public water system. I think there's a lot of middle ground to be explored with data. And I think there's also potentially tools like the one I just dropped in the chat. Not perfect, but you know, if we put imperfect tools out, maybe it drives us towards having conversations that are harder and better, and ultimately having a better position for this website, because like you said, Evelyn, it is of great concern to me that this is the place that people find when they search for, is my water safe to drink, and that we point them in a lot of different directions. And we do that with other topics as well. I don't want to single out the drinking water topic. It's not unique in the sense that this website doesn't always directly answer those questions. So anyway, I'm just here to say that that's my global perspective, long view on this, is that we can do a lot more, I think. And I'll just ask, particularly if you know anything about that website that I dropped a link into. I happen to have been sort of watching this group over the years, and they're doing a really interesting job of aggregating data across the different sort of consumer confidence report and safe drinking water reporting platforms. And the link is in the chat. It's the city water at mytapscore.com.
Thank you. I also want to point out that Sean McGuire is really eager for a site like this site to support their work. He feels I think a strong sense of urgency as well. So I think you probably know we have some, you know, or maybe all water board support to you know, to keep plugging, right? That's all we can do. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's an ongoing conversation. It has been as long as I've been around and this council has been around. In fact, its very first charge was to answer those important questions. And that's why I had a question-driven website for 10, 15 years that was a little frustrating to some people because it asked questions and it didn't answer them. So we're still here.
We can't answer these questions. That's one thing we know we can do, right? We just have to do it. Easier said than done, but.
Well, it's okay to answer that we don't necessarily know too. And I think
true.
that's part of the challenge, is that, especially with drinking water, it's so complex. The thing that I like about that MyTapScore website is that it does tackle one of the most difficult areas, which is communicating the actual risk associated with exceedances of MCLs. They're just different. They're just different in so many different ways to different kinds of scenarios. And so rather than just say it's complicated and you just need a PhD in chemistry and water quality to understand it, they at least are taking a stab at sort of categorizing and binning some of these different risks. And I think we can take that approach with some of our other topics. And I'm not here to like champion that one website. I'm just saying,
I understand.
Yeah, we actually have examples under Safe to Swim that's got a Canadian Safe to Swim map on it. So like if we can put that on, maybe we can put on the MyTapScore and some other things too.
You know, I just want to point out, I'm from LA. You know, I lived in the Palisades for 25 years. I don't live there now, but so many of my friends, you know, lost everything. And of course, I'm getting, you know, so many inquiries about water, and you know, all of LA is just in a panic, you know, and even though all of LA should not be in a panic. I mean, emotionally, we're all in a panic, but as far as our drinking water goes, and even that alone, I think this website could have helped, you know, mitigate a bit, but it wasn't really set up to do that. So hopefully we are learning lessons, you know, right? Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are.
Thank you.
No, thank you. As Anna said, are there any other work group chairs or co-chairs or members or anyone that wants to either talk about or ask questions about the website or make comments now? Just free form, give us feedback.
I can share my screen again if needed.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, just this is the first I've really explored the website, and I've been poking around the Safe to Swim. I'm the regional beach coordinator at Region 9 EPA, so this touches some of the work that I do, and I just want to say that just at first glance, I'm really impressed. The website does a great job of connecting different programs, like the monitoring program that happens partially with BCheck funds that EPA provides, and then also connecting that to water quality standards and assessment and even TMDLs. I mean, we throw out all of these programs and these terms and this is a great example of how to connect all of those in a simple way that doesn't get super jargony and is accessible to the public. And so I just want to just throw out some compliments and hold this up as an example of how we can better communicate, all these different programs and the work that's going on to the public in a way that's accessible. So just want to make that comment.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I remember talking to Nick about how the different things that we could improve in conveying information, and it's not perfect, but there's definitely a lot of thought, and the fact that you recognize that thought was put into the Safe to Swim redesign. So thanks. All right, anyone else?
Hey, I'll just it's Brian.
No, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll just compliment it as well. I mean, I think just the concept of data sharing and communication is increasingly critical as someone that's worked in the field for a long time. I mean, and as far as open data goes, any of these portals I think are super important, right? Like the data is only as open as the window is transparent, and I mean, these are the windows and ways that not just the public but also professionals access the information. So I think all these efforts are super important to us in California.
Yeah, agreed. So Rafa had a question in the chat. I'll just try to answer it from my perspective. I think Safe to Swim and Harmful Algal Bloom and maybe one or two others have, Stu, for example, have backbone open data pipelines to the CEDN data sets, or the state of California State Water Board sponsored and stewarded data sets that are behind those maps. For example, the swamp dashboard and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is, you can either access the data through the interface that's on the webpage, or there's also in some cases links to the open data resource on data.ca.gov. The goal would ultimately to sort of do that universally, so that anytime we have a map or a tool that exposes data that we are providing from the state, that we also provide the open data resource to that same data. The other thing I'll say is that there's a lot of changes happening in the back end of how the water board is organizing and flowing its data. And so some of these tools may sort of go through a bit of a transition as we go forward. And that really just has to do with where we're staging data and how we're making it available to these tools and open data publication endpoints. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. I know that the last thing I'll say on this data and accessibility and where it's coming from, I know in my conversations with folks about the post-fire concerns with a water lens in Southern California right now, is that even with our best CIDWIS open data pipeline automating the chemistry data that's being provided to the state, that's still too old for some of the needs. And so there is a sort of other world of, during disasters, and this is maybe something, Krista, that we can talk about as the post-fire group moves forward, is there a special framework that we could stand up that would allow us to leverage sort of a more tighter workflow, so that the LIMS data that comes from the lab goes to a website, LADWP or County of LA Public Health or someone like that is posting it on their page. Can we also harvest that and make it available in sort of a more real-time emergency kind of a framework? Because I think that's part of the challenge, is that you go looking for drinking water data and you might find 2023 data, you might find last week's data, If you're lucky, you might find last week's data, but yeah, it's all over the place. So that's one of the concerns, is this timeliness part too. I know that that's a long running concern with safe to swim and harmful algal blooms too, is a lot of that is sort of looking after the fact. You can say it was safe to swim or recreate or bring your dog last week, but it's really hard to say anything about today. So maybe we think about emerging data as sort of like an organizing effort around some of the area on the council's webpage. We're getting closer and closer to having closer to real-time, if not real-time data on things like harmful algal bloom satellite data. If we could eventually forecast something with something like that, that would be really cool. But a lot of the stuff we have, once you do find it, it is of not interest because of its age, so to speak, its shelf life. So, all right. Anything else? Web pages, grouping data, centering data, accessibility, equity lens. I know there's a lot of thought about how our web's content is still in need of some adjustments for equity, but yeah. Okay, and if you could go back to the main slide deck, I think we're on the final item.
Caught me off guard. 1 second.
I mean, I can do it too, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the dates that were sort of loosely collected and organized in the end of 2024 between myself, my calendar, and Caitlin and Jen Eckerly's calendars over at CNRA. So we could, the idea was that we could sort of like pre-think some dates. I'd like to just sort of keep at least the next two, unless there's major objections. I suppose there's room to talk about November 20th, but for sure, the next two, I think let's keep those because of the transition to the new director and just the need for me to not have a lot of moving parts. So the next date for the meeting is May 15th. And then after that, we have one sort of scheduled for the 21st of August, right in the middle of travel time, which is okay. And then November 20th is the final quarter meeting of 2025. Any feedback or comments or questions about that? I think they're all going to be 10 a.m. starts, probably a light agenda on May 15th, and maybe by August, we can start beefing up the agenda again.
And Greg, they're all remote.
They're all remote. We don't have any change in the status about both the concerned travel and the allowance for us to do these as all remote. So we're sticking with all remote at this point.
If that changed, would we be able to transition these?
I think so. I mean, I guess what I could do, Nick is gone, but I think what he used to do was also back these up sometimes with a reservation of one of our hearing rooms or like a Klamath room or something at the water board offices. So I can look into doing that so that we have that option. But yeah, it's a good idea. All right, next slide, please. So this was just some brainstorm ideas from the last meeting in September. I think we were hoping to have a discussion of some of these in December and/or at this meeting, but they're still on the table. So these and other ideas would be open. Does anyone have any particular preference or thoughts or suggestions on things that we could talk about at the upcoming May meeting?
Well, we've been kicking the can down the road on the ocean acidification for a while, and the final report from the expert panel has been released. So I think that it's not unreasonable to move ahead with that one.
We'll make sure that we ask the right people. Steve couldn't make, Weisberg couldn't make today's meeting because of my clunky communication. So I will reach out to Squirt and see where they're at. I'll also reach out to Nick at DWQ and Karen Mogus, who sits on the steering committee.
Caitlin, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, Lorian, that was perfect. I was planning to raise my hand on this exact piece, whether it be the Romsbeck model, which again, an independent panel review report had just completed and is now available this month. So that is timely. I can do my due diligence on the status of the empirical monitoring component of that work as well to see if there are timely updates for May or if there are additional timeliness factors maybe after the summer. But so that's my only outstanding question. If we could focus on modeling, it could be interesting to look at potentially Southern California bite efforts. There's also, separate, not specific to ocean acidification necessarily, but the model work in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think there's some synergy between the two efforts that could be a very robust meeting. Just my outstanding question for myself to do OPC's homework on the status of the empirical monitoring component and the timeliness of an agenda item on the fiscal monitoring to complement the modeling.
Great.
Peter?
Yes, this comes from my role as sponsor of the equity working group. So Greg, you said a minute ago that the web pages still need a lot of equity focus or work put into them. I don't know if that would be like a discussion that we would have at the council level, or if it would come from like the equity working group. But if others are interested in that, that might be a possible topic.
Yeah, I'm totally supportive of that. I think, to share a little bit more of what my brain was thinking is potentially de-jargonizing a lot of our pages would be a first step, and like take some of the technical language that still exists. I know that Nick and team tried to do that in the redo, but there's probably more. And then there's, of course, other languages and access that way. There's also data access that could be considered and centered so that, maybe ways to sort of prioritize this work would be to not try to change the whole website, but to take some of our key data tools and think about, can somebody find these in Spanish language? Can they understand them in Spanish language? Something like that. So different ways to sort of look at the website from an accessibility and equity lens, I think. Okay, any other suggestions or feedback on this list? Where are people at on AI?
Hold on, can I elevate
yeah.
what I added to the chat for people
Of
that
course.
are
Yeah.
gonna watch this awesome recording because it's gonna be on the internet? I just wanted to +1 Peter's question, and as a work group co-chair, I think discussions at both levels in terms of having the discussion on at the council level to see ideas like what Greg just shared, that would be really helpful, and then having formal guidance from the equity work group to other council work groups. Maybe like a checklist or something where we can kind of really re-review our web pages and our resources with an equity lens, having that sort of guidance from our equity practitioners of the council, that would be really helpful. Okay, now we can talk about AI. Sorry, Greg.
No, +1 again, +1 to that +1. Yeah, where are people on AI? People want to hear anything about that, or is it still too like amorphous and risky sounding or whatever? I know Steve would be enthusiastic about this, but
I mean, I'm not working on anything specific, though. I have some, and I know of projects, mostly sort of with visual AI and either satellite imagery or LiDAR and stuff like that. But yeah, it might be interesting to see some of those projects. I don't know. Yeah, and maybe there's some HAB efforts along those lines. I'm not sure.
yeah, there's different pathways for AI with HABs. There's definitely the satellite remote sensing that is still a work in progress, but then for years now they've been using those. I forget what it's called, but it's basically a real-time microscopy imaging, sends it to a computer to identify cell type and cyanobacteria type, flow, something flow, cytoflow. anyway, there's that whole technology that's really interesting to talk about, more of a machine learning, like you said, Brian. But yeah, we have some pilot projects and people are thinking about at the water board ways to use generative AI to address large scale water resource topics. Certainly not anything real yet. For one thing, the data ecosystem to support that needs to be probably a lot better. And that'll take a long time just to build up so that we could do it. But then there's a lot of risk and a lot of concern. So from my perspective, as a regulated, as a representative of a regulatory agency, it's a little early to sort of like showcase anything, but it's not too early to start talking about lots of topics, including potential like boundaries, guidance, principles that the council could put on its web pages and talk about within its work groups, so that folks feel like it's not like it is just a wide open Wild West kind of a AI environment. So
yeah, I'd agree. I think that my experience is that people would benefit from more information about what it is. So yeah, just the scope of types of projects and brainstorming around, or what other folks are brainstorming, would be super interesting. And I think just from a public professional standpoint, good for people to kind of hear about, so they understand what we're talking about.
Can I actually chime in here? And I can't figure out how to raise my hand because I'm sharing the screen. I went to the Environmental Data Science Summit hosted by NC's. Oh gosh, the National Center for Ecological and Synthesis. I can add links to the chat when I'm done sharing. But the conversation this year was about using AI in environmental data science. A lot of conversations were similar to what y'all are talking about, like how can we use AI to improve our work, how we do science, how we monitor things. But there were also lots of conversations about understanding how to utilize AI responsibly, acknowledging that the crux of AI is due to the testing data sets, and those are on the internet, based on the internet, which is not necessarily an equitable space. There was a lot of conversation about acknowledging energy and water use when using AI. So like those sorts of conversations are happening in other places, and lots of things will be coming out of the Data Summit participants. So it's something that as papers are published and things like that, I can bring that to the attention of the council. But just wanted to flag that others are having these wrangling with this idea too.
awesome. Thank you. Evelyn, your hand went up and then went away.
Well, I kind of had a question, and Anna kind of started talking about it, and that was, because when you do a search, and it's AI generated, the answers, sometimes they can almost override like facts, as we all know. And I just wondered if the water board sort of had a way to sort of kind of combat that or deal with that or check, keep things in check, because it's pretty profound, some of the answers and how they can be kind of misconstrued and not properly, especially when it comes to this. I mean, just kind of freaks me out. So, Anna, you kind of talked about it, but I just wondered, that was it.
We can queue this up for an agenda item to talk about in more detail, but I'll just briefly say the state of California is struggling to actually develop procedures and guidance for using generative AI. We don't have it. And in a vacuum of statewide guidance from our chief information officer framework in California, every CIO at every department is left on their own to either develop their own guidance or to decide to go run with scissors. And the water board has traditionally been a risk-averse organization. We're actually leaning into generative AI, and we're going to write our own guidance because we think it's important to try to get out there and start using and experimenting. And we want to sort of have a conversation or a role in the conversation about what that statewide guidance should look like. We really do think that despite all the potential harm that could be done with AI on search engines and what have you, we bear a certain responsibility to also help lead water resource efficiencies and effectiveness using AI and other things. So we're leaning in, and we have a working group and a pilot team that's gonna try to not only write the guidance, but do some use cases. So it's maybe something to talk about, but where I was going with this is at a very certain point, the water board may be using AI on its own webpage. That's down the road. What we won't do is ever have any role in countering other voices. Like, unless we can flood the internet with more useful data that serves as the basis for the brain and the learning feedback loop, we don't have a role in regulating what other people say about water. We're victims as well of people's mythology.
Well, what other people say is one thing, but what's AI generated is another. So it is kind of a responsibility to put out as much as possible, because that does feeds
Agreed.
the brain. So that's good to know. And I do think education through AI tools, it actually is powerful. And it's good to hear that you guys are kind of taking a leadership, aggressive role with that. Thank you.
Yeah. One of our pilot ideas is, at a minimum, I've prioritized this, is to have a search, like a ChatGPT search function that you could go in and ask a plain language question that might have a data related answer to it. And this brain would have mapped out the water board's URLs for all the different data resources, because we have a lot, and a lot of them are tucked away in weird corners on program pages. And this chatbot would be at least able to say, sounds like you're asking about wetlands and how long it takes to get a wetland permit or something like that. Here's a map, or here's a dashboard that shows the typical time it takes to get a wetland permit. So that's the kind of thing that is like on our horizon, and that'll take 6 months to a year to get through all the bureaucratic hoops to get something on our webpage like that.
Maybe in the end, this will be really good.
I think it has a lot of potential. And again, I think so does my executive team at the water board. So we're leaning in. But I don't know if it's ripe. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one lesson that we kind of settled on at the Environmental Data Summit on AI was an acknowledgement and understanding that AI can be a good thing so long as we keep humans in the equation. So don't just trust AI to solve our problems. The training data is essential. It's imperfect. There will still need to be a human component with use of AI to really keep those checks and bounds in place. So I think so long as we continue on that path, then it's not the worst case scenario, right? Humans still need to be involved and included in how we utilize and quality control and check AI tools, because they're just models. They're not brains. They're just really complicated models.
Okay, so that was a lot of discussion about a topic that didn't seem to have much interest at the beginning. That said, I do think that the next most ripe item, Caitlin, I don't know if you agree, but is the modeling topic. And it could be a broad statewide numeric analysis, kind of traditional modeling topic that talks about ROMspec and the BITE, as well as the Bay Area topic that you were talking about, or it could be 100% on ROMspec. What do you think?
I think we should explore both, and if it's ripe, then present both. But certainly, if ROMspec could be a topic. So that's to say we should go and confirm the status, and then build the agenda from there, if that makes sense.
It does. Other members of the council have any thoughts on this before I sort of take that as guidance to go formulate the next agenda?
Yeah, the Bay model doesn't really have much to do with what's happening in the BITE and going up the coast. So if we wanted to have sort of a modeling grab bag, then that makes sense, but there isn't really a segue between the two. And they're actually just starting to figure out how to interface the Bay model outputs with the impacts on the ocean. So it's sort of how the agenda works out, I think, should drive it rather than any kind of connection.
Cool. Thank you for that clarification and feedback. Anyone else, members, want to drive the agenda for next time? Are there any other ideas that we didn't talk about? Okay. So I think we have our charge for the next agenda. And then meanwhile, in the director updates, we can continue to like bring up other projects. I know Krista and Steve will probably have something, and Fred, maybe others will have something to talk about with fire.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
So as
Say
you
two
know,
things.
I'm sorry.
You could say two things.
I think I'm just going to say one thing. As you know, we have this subcommittee that we formed to facilitate this group of experts to write a concept paper to convince the state to set up some kind of standardized monitoring program. By talking with legislative offices, it may be possible to just jump right to the end of that if we can get them interested. And Greg, they wanted to know if the money would come to Coast or, you know, academia. I said, no, 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 no. You should give the money to the State Water Resources Control Board and let them do it. So that's the goal, would be to get a piece of legislation in place requiring this to be developed. And it probably wouldn't have an appropriation at first, or maybe it would, but that would be the goal, is to then fund development and implementation of this. It would still be great to have academic experts inform that plan, but we might just be able to get a whole lot further ahead without, you know, implementing our plan for this team of experts, and then that could take like a year and a half because we've also lost momentum. So yeah, we might have a lot more information in May.
That's great. That's exciting. And I fully support the short circuiting on, we don't have to talk about it, obviously, for the ledge to do good things. I may or may not, and Caitlin may or may not be able to participate in those conversations because of the separation of branches and all that Article 1 stuff. But that said, I do think there's still another set of topics around this that the council could and should talk about. For example, the larger issues with fire and water quality. So drinking water, I know there's current legislation that says the only testing that's required is benzene. And I've been talking to folks that think that's irrational to only have to test for benzene in the drinking water systems after a fire has come and burned out the whole urban area. And then, so that's something to sort of like put on the plate that's unrelated to this runoff topic. There's also this data framework topic around when you do have a disaster like this, can you stand up something a little quicker than the typical weeks or months it takes now to like start showing the data that's being collected as part of these fire events? And I'm just talking about water again, or water quality. So anyway, there, and maybe a working group, maybe a web page, maybe a something that the council needs to sort of like formally talk about, right?
Sure. And that would be the goal too of a standardized plan, is it would lay out, you know, how soon after a fire you get out there, what are you sampling for, where do you sample upstream, downstream, how many samples, what constituents, what protocols, all that. So the first step might just be legislating the development of a plan that, you know, would broadly include, right, heavy metals, organic pollutants, some contaminants of emerging concern. And then it would definitely have to be informed by academia and experts. And I think too, I know you guys can't necessarily go in there and talk to folks, but we can talk to you, and then we can go in there and talk to them. And again, we're just here as an honest broker of information, not to advocate for anything, but I think it's appropriate to advocate for the development of a plan. I mean, that's just kind of basic science and responsibility. So they also have to put in the bill. Caitlin, I can't remember what the bill submission deadline is, but you can just put in a spot bill basically where it's a placeholder and then you really develop it more fully later. But Caitlin, do you know what the deadline is for?
I can pull up the congressional calendar. But actually, I'll come off mute to kind of, I don't know, to flip-flop a little bit on the timeliness of topics, as well as outside of, you know, legislative ask, is maybe using this forum, to what extent can this be an informational tool? You know, in the timeliness of May, not only for the legislative calendar, but for ourselves as far as a report out following, this winter season actually may be very timely if we did a more wildfire focused agenda and deep dive. Not to say ocean acidification, ROMSPEC always feels timely, but we could potentially swap for wildfire, a more deeper wildfire informational, update, looking at the Los Angeles work from this last year, diving a little bit into the data, the future coordination needs, and having a more robust conversation, inviting guest speakers on those specific topics. Krista, using this more as an informational forum, certainly rather than direction for the legislature, but certainly more as a tool, could be timely, appropriate, and it's still within the legislative cycle. So if there's anything, a recommendation that does come out of here that is appropriate, that could be potentially taken up, independently by a third party, or if a legislative member or staffer were happen, to have this information. So
the other thing is if they put in a spot bill, we'll know. And then if we could get a hearing on the bill, then we can put some experts in front of whoever would be on the committee it would go through, I think. So there's a lot of opportunity. We're going to keep talking to them. I already sent them some preliminary information, and we'll just see where it goes.
And to answer your question, Krista, looks like the deadline for spot bills maybe tomorrow, February 21st.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, I might check in with them today and see what they're doing.
Not to say that bills aren't amended and changed throughout the session either.
Yeah. The messy road ahead is going to be messy as usual. Regarding the topic, I think, Caitlin, it's actually really exciting to me to think about May as an opportunity to talk about this fire and water quality topic. My concern is bandwidth for myself. I don't have anyone that could sort of like shepherd the whole topic in the item. And it's going to need it. It's not that far away. May is like right around the corner in many ways. So that'd be my concern, is that it seems like there'd be a lot of wrangling of different potential speakers and then organizing it and making sure that we have all the things ready so that it would be a good use of our time with this legislative intent or this informative intent.
It's a good flag, given it's timely. OPC, we have some limited capacity barriers as well, but if there's one contact within OWEMA or SWAMP, we could put our two teams together to flesh this out while you're, still having a director on board.
Okay, so why don't we set up the action item for us is that for you and I, Caitlin, to talk in the next week or 3 or something like that, and really hone in on this agenda thing, because we need all the advance notice that we can get if we're going to do the fire lift.
Absolutely.
And can I just chime in that if we are going to do that, we definitely want to invite some of the DEW experts who've been working on this. So they have a lot of both background and on the ground experience that we definitely want to bring. So just let me, if it seems like it's definitely going that way, let me know connect with Dan Newton and others. Tom McCarthy who've been dealing with this directly.
It's awesome. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that ends that item, and I think we're now at the very last thing, which is to adjourn the meeting. Are there any other final comments or questions that council members or anyone else has at this point?
I'll work on posting the recording, and it should be up on the YouTube channel in the next couple days, by next week for sure.
Thank you, Anna. Awesome. Okay, well, hearing nothing and seeing no hands popping up, I suggest that we adjourn the meeting. Thank you,
Great
everyone.
job, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Much.
Greg, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good job, Greg.
Bye.